Good morning. Thank you for joining us for today's live stream on SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel. To stay informed about all of our live stream and video events, we invite you to subscribe to this channel. You can go ahead and do that right now. Today, we welcome you to the President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement. This is our live stream, Social Media for Performers, Creating and Connecting in the Time of COVID. The presentation will begin momentarily. If you have questions that you would like to direct to today's guest, please email pteoe@sagaftra.org. That's pteoe@sagaftra.org. Just a note, we'll be pausing throughout as we will have a pair of ASL interpreters with us here today who will be switching off throughout the panel. As a reminder, today's program is being recorded and you can watch the replay right here on SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel. Now, please welcome today's host and moderator, Ben Whitehair.
Hi, everybody. Welcome and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be watching with us in the world. I hope that everybody's doing well in this crazy, crazy time. I am standing in today for our SAG-AFTRA president, Gabrielle Carteris, who is unfortunately not able to be with us today, but sends her regards. My name is Ben Whitehair. I'm a SAG-AFTRA National Board Member and the chair of the National Next Gen Performers Committee. A little bit about my background. I'm a champion for social change through art and business. I work with Ryan, who I'll introduce in a minute, as the CIO of TSMA Consulting, and I'm the co-founder of the online business academy and coaching community Working.Actor. And I was a homeschooled cowboy. So if people have questions about bull riding or dairy cows, we can rock that out today as well. Today, we're here with an incredible panel of speakers that we've assembled for today's discussion. And it's our hope that we leave you today more informed and more inspired to go forth and do great work that brings joy to yourselves and to the world. Today's webinar is the third installment in our Social Media for Performers series. From new social first talk shows and scripted series, from table reads to DJing dance parties, from concerts and story time at home, COVID-19 has birthed an undeniable explosion of creativity and innovation. And in this panel, we're going to explore the ways in which COVID-19 has been a challenge for digital influencers and content creators, new innovations from various social media platforms, and how it's inspired our panelists to adapt and evolve their own approach to social media. For those of you who may not know already or be familiar with Next Gen Performers, or what we refer to as NGP, NGP works to develop, serve, and connect the emerging generation of our union's membership and consists of SAG-AFTRA members who encourage young adult professional members to take control of their careers, get involved, and get active through social media, social networking meetups, community outreach, special events, and much more. Now, I am very excited to welcome today's esteemed panelists, some you may know, some who may be new to you. Shivani Bhagwan is the co-founder of leading Bollywood and Bhangra dance class and company in Los Angeles, B-Funk, which became an online dance phenomenon on YouTube and revolutionized Indian dance content, earning the title of one of the most influential South Asian dancers with over 300 million content views on their content. Shivani and her team have been brought in to work with leading Bollywood actors and singers. They've worked with brands like Toyota and Nike, as well as mainstream artists like DJ Snake, BB Rexa. Shivani, welcome. We're so excited to have you. Ayanna Henderson loves all things digital and social. She built an eclectic career thanks to her talent for recognizing emerging and relevant digital trends and new products. She built major studio relationships with Sony, Fox, Disney, talent agencies, production studios, and more. She's also an adjunct professor of social media at Santa Monica College and is also a social media strategist where she teaches on the role and importance of social media marketing, identifying target audiences, content creation, and much more. Welcome. We are so excited to have you, Ayanna. Chris Naoki Lee was born and raised in Los Angeles. He's been working in TV and film for over 20 years. He's guest starred on shows such as AMC's The Terror, Fox's Deputy and Lethal Weapon, Amazon's Jean-Claude Van Johnson, and Too Old to Die Young. And currently, which I'm very excited to hear more about later, he is completing post-production on his very first feature film, Dinner Party, which he wrote and directed. Welcome, Chris. Publicized as a proactive force in entertainment, Ryan Walker is the founder and CEO of TSMA Consulting, a social media firm he created while living on the back of a boat in Marina del Rey. He has ultimately led his company to becoming one of the nation's leading social media education and management firms with notable clients that he's worked with from working with the Final Cut Pro X team over at Apple, Apogee, and Adobe in support of Adobe Video World, their virtual conference. And Ryan educates globally on social media, brand development, and digital growth for creators. And he's done over 40 brand partnerships on his own personal Instagram account. He was the host of last week's Social Media Performers Beyond the Basics live stream event, so be sure to check that out. Welcome, Ryan. Last, but certainly not least, Yasmina is a dreamer. She's an actor, a model, a social media influencer. She's been a member of SAG and now SAG-AFTRA for 20 years. She's known for her beautiful fine art photography. She is a one-woman powerhouse and creator who is not only a master of content creation, but also of digital partnerships. And I am so excited to have her with us here as well. So with all that said, I'm excited to get started and jump into our discussion today. I would love to start with a couple simple questions. I want to hear from each of you. Where are you spending your time on social media? Has that changed because of COVID, or what changes have you seen on the platforms that you're actually using and how you're approaching looking at content creation and where you're spending your time on social media? Ryan, let's start with you.
Wonderful. Well, not too long of an answer from me. I've been basically on a slight hiatus since all of this began. A big part of my social media presence is travel, and the majority of those partnerships that I've done have been around the world with hotel brands, with car brands. Really tough to do that right now. I've been stuck here in Los Angeles for, like many of us have, for the last 7 months or so. So my content kind of hit a stall in a sense. However, of course, because of my work that I do with Ben and the rest of the team here, we manage a lot of accounts. So we're keeping content consistent and making sure that we have positive, inspirational messages at this time, that we're very cognizant of important changes happening both culturally and in the economy and in the world right now. There's a lot happening. For myself personally, however, I was, of course, wanted to post during the Black Lives Matter movement, which was a very important, very, very important social media movement that our company took a lot of effort to make sure that all of our clients had something go out and made sure that we were very cognizant of that going on. So I put a post out myself, and it's been tough, as many of you may be in the same position. It's been tough to think, how can I now go back to normal, content wise during this time, because it definitely doesn't feel normal for the majority of the world. So it's hard to go back to traveling, lifestyle kind of content. But definitely something I'm inspired to do. So yeah, it's changed pretty dramatically from posting, every day or every other day to, now backlogging content, but finding the right time to pick it up again.
Shivani, dance and some of the dance videos you do often include a lot of people. How have you been adjusting to a world where that's not quite possible?
Oh man, it has been so crazy because what I do full time is teach, and I had to quickly pivot with my business partner Chaya. We just built everything online. We have an online dance platform now at bfunkdance.com. So it's just, we switched everything online as quickly as possible, as I'm sure so many other dance teachers did. And then we realized over time that since people had more time in general on their phones, just working at home and being at home, we really quickly pivoted to TikTok and Instagram and Triller, actually, we've been pretty active on. So I would definitely say Instagram has been the number one. And before, we were really active on YouTube with long form content, but I think that became more difficult because dance studios were closed. We had to get really creative with what parts of our house we could use to film. We were dancing in like every corner of the house you could imagine, and especially the kitchen area. So it's just, we really had to get super creative with making sure that we're still staying safe, but then also keeping our business alive. And so that meant like dancing on rooftops sometimes, or parking lots, or empty spaces, empty garages. So yeah. definitely had to pivot quickly.
Got it. Yeah. Yasmina, what about you? How has your journey been in this time?
For me, it has been surprising because I'm also a big traveler. And in fact, it doesn't change a lot when I'm in between trips because I'm at home. So for me, it was not changing really. But something really changed is that as I was here, I finally did the request I had of video about speaking about my experience. So and this was really something I wanted, and I had requests in many years that I was never taking the time to do because I was always traveling. And I started that, and the surprise was because I'm also a little social entrepreneur with this cashmere shawls that I created with Nepal, and I started to sell my shawls. And I was at home doing this video that people were really enjoying, about well-being, about yoga, about health, about food, all that. And I had my shawls and people asked for my shawls and I started to sell the little socks. So it helps me also in my social entrepreneurship because, and it came like that. And I was like, wow, now I understand why I financed a little bit of this production last year. And and everything was flowing. And it became also evident to me because I have followers from all around the world. And with what was going on, it's difficult to know exactly what is going on. So I say, maybe what we can do video with people around the world, like discussion about what is going on for you, what is going on in your country, to have an information that is real from people, but everybody lives things differently. But like this, it was possible from artists or different kind of people to have an approach about how they live this situation in this time. So in a way, I put my platform more as a base for discussion in between people about what is going on, but always with a positive mindset to create somewhere a kind of positive network of people who can see this with elevation, the situation, and imagine create in their mind a positive issue, a positive future, the best positive future possible by creating like that, this is a time where we are stimulated, like said Shivani. I was laughing because my daughter-in-law is a dancer teacher and she had to change everything. And she had to do at home, to give the class from her home and to be creative. And it was fantastic to see what she did. So I was like, yeah, it really stimulates our creativity. I think for me, I feel it like an amazing time of big changes. We have the perfect tools. We have all this social media and the technology, and I don't know very well how to use it, but it's fantastic. It's really fantastic. We created the tools exactly that we need to be in touch together and create together in a different way, minimize pollution, inventing, going to simple things. Why not dancing in the kitchen? Sure, and all these things. I think I'm amazed. I'm amazed by what is going on because I'm also someone very positive. But I always try to find a way to get out of something that is not pleasant, So, and to create with that. And I think it's a purpose. These things are coming in our life to stimulate our creativity and imagination. Imagination for me, it's image in action. We put image in action, It's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm inspired by SAG-AFTRA members who are using the opportunity of this moment to say, hey, how can I still create? How can I get my message out to the world? And what a wonderful time that we have the ability to do that. Yeah. Ayana, you get to interact with a lot of students, especially as well, and obviously your own social media experience. Where are you focusing your time? Where are you seeing people get the most traction in what they're working on?
Yeah, so this is clearly the time for using your banked content. If you were able to shoot before the the coronavirus, then you have this bank of content that you can use and repurpose. Or if it's, you know, content that you've used prior, it's a good time now to go back and maybe think about re-editing it. And if you don't know how to edit, or you don't have those tools available to you, there are a lot of apps that you can use on your phone to pull in that content, the video. You can add music, you can add filters, you can add effects. So while I'm teaching, that's definitely something that we're talking about, is look in your camera roll. What's already in your camera roll that you can use and create new content? So even if you're mixing in, you know, like an intro or an outro on something new from your phone, and adding that old content, you can even start looking at your content and giving reviews of, oh, this was a great moment when I did XYZ, or check out my performance. You know, you can add those bumpers onto content that you've already used before. In the classroom, it's really interesting because platforms are adapting to, you know, the current climate, and they're actually creating units or places to have conversations that are based on certain hashtags. So if you are looking to be a part of a conversation, it's easy to find those just simply by using a hashtag. If you want to collaborate, you know, this is a perfect time to start collaborating with other creators online, and reaching out by DM or sending a tweet or doing something else, because people are mostly, you know, working from home, and they're available and they're checking their phones more often than they were before. It's a boom in entrepreneurship. You're seeing a lot of new creators starting new businesses, or they're jumping on platforms where they can interact with their audience and then ask for money, but in the way that you should do on social media. So these social media platforms, especially if you go live, you can start asking for contributions. So while you're doing your lives, or, you know, doing your videos, that's something to think about, is incorporating which platform makes sense, and which one of the platforms have adapted, where you're able to reach to your audience and you can get those contributions.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, I would love to hear, I know you're in post-production for a film, which is an all-consuming process. I would love to hear, certainly if there are pieces you want to focus on with social media, but even more perhaps about your journey from being a content creator that spent a lot of time creating content on social media, and how has that helped some of the other elements of your career, whether that's other projects, this specific film that you've created, how is that woven together?
No, that's a great question. I think it definitely it helps in so many ways, just because, you know, everything is a connective tissue. I mean, I used to dance as well, and I post a lot of content about it. I did a lot of comedy sketches as well, and it's all just part of that connective tissue. As artists, is we just love to continue to create. The idea of creating this film was something that was incepted maybe about like 18 months ago. And it was just a very simple story. You know, the idea was, if you met your childhood friends today, would you still be friends with them? And it's something that resonates quite a bit, I think, in today's day and age, especially from, you know, my perspective as an Asian American. For myself, I always wanted to use creating content as a way to not only build relationships, but also it's kind of your workup. You know, that's how I always viewed social media, is that it's the fastest way somebody can just quickly take a look at who you are, see what you're about, see what you can do, and then just to measure your level of engagement as well. All things are important. I've also had a little bit of a, kind of like how Ryan said, I had a little bit of a relationship change, I'd say, when it came to social media, especially start of 2020. And then especially once the pandemic happened, and then everything that happened with the Black Lives Matter movement, I think for myself specifically was, how do I balance my own authenticity with my quote unquote brand as well? And I think that's something that's very hard for a lot of people to do too, even, you know, just people who aren't even in the business when it comes to entertainment. So that's something that for myself that I've grappled with really hard, was how do I continue to be authentic? And I slowly started to not care too much about, you know, just, oh, I got to go out and get a content photo today because I got to put a lifestyle photo up, versus, no, this is something that's actually important to me. I want to post this instead, because this is what I'm, you know, this is what I gravitate towards. So I think those are things that I've slowly just navigated as well. And I think, you know, there's no right answer when it comes to something like this, but for myself, particularly when it came to creating this film, because it has such a strong message. It's something that for myself, I want to create without being heavy pointing my finger at somebody, but just being like, hey, this is how we start dialogue. And I think that's something that we as artists, that's our responsibility as well, is to create that type of dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought up authenticity and how we navigate that. I think that's been a question that I've heard a lot, certainly in the midst of these social movements, but just in general, people ask, you know, hey, I feel like on social media, I need to be promoting myself all the time, and that doesn't necessarily feel right. Chris, and then to anybody else, are there any tips that you have for people on how to be thinking about social media in a way to maintain that authenticity?
I think it's important to know time and place. You know, I had a conversation with my mentor, like just maybe a couple months ago, when, you know, especially when everything was happening with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and there were still people on social media just very okay to post, you know, beach photos and take a look at me photos. And again, I don't want to say there's anything wrong with that, but it's also like, hey, you should also realize that this is the message that you are sending out to the world, that this is what you are putting out there, versus, hey, there are things that are happening, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with them or not. I do find that for myself, if I don't outwardly perceive that for people, then people won't know what I believe. And somebody who might be on the fence, one of my audience members or followers, might be looking at it being like, oh, well, if Chris doesn't care too much about it, then I don't feel like I need to care too much about it. That is the power of influence. And I think that's something that, as us, it's not our fault that these things may be happening, but it is our responsibility to perhaps do something about it. So that's something that I think I've been trying to sort of turn a little bit more on when it comes to social media.
Beautiful. Ayana, you work with a lot of other people managing accounts and supporting people. What's the guidance that you've had in this time?
Yeah, so I work with one major celebrity, and that was something, you know, a decision to make when people were going dark on social, and when they decided to come off of being dark on social, and what was that first message. And so that message was definitely crafted with a video, in fact, that showed footage that was happening in their hometown, and this how you can support. And so staying authentic, definitely, you saw a shift in social where it became a big divide. It was people that were posting these every day, look at me, I'm at the beach. And then there were people that were posting things that were in support of a cause, or just talking about the moments and taking that time. So when it comes to like authenticity, I always recommend to go live, or to do a message that's addressing a situation, or show how you can support. So you saw a lot of viral posts that went where it became a shareable moment, where people, you know, said I'm in solidarity, or whatever that messaging was during that time period. So when it comes to authenticity, you should definitely use your voice. And what you post, you know, it needs to be sort of like looking at, you know, if you're looking outside, what's the climate, instead of just staying in a box. I think a lot of influencers and people on social, they stay in a box. It's like, this is, you know, where I live in my Instagram box or Facebook, and this is what I talk about, and so my channel needs to stay this way. And when it came to brands, a lot of people were checking, you know, the pages to see if they had posted a message in solidarity, or what the cause was, or if they were doing a grant or a donation. And so a lot of consumers lost customers based on that, because they were not taking a part of the conversation. So, you know, when you're talking about celebrity, if you're talking about a brand, or if you're just talking about yourself, you know, it's a very fine line. You know, there's something called the unfollow Minotti, and basically people decide, your audience, if they unfollow, you know, your account based on what they see, and if it sort of resonates.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan, you have done a lot of partnerships yourself and worked with people who are doing that. What's if anything, your recommendation on how these times affect getting partnerships in this time, and then just broadly speaking, if that's something that people are interested in doing, how do we approach that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as Ayana said, the consumer world on social media has changed drastically in the last 6 months. Content consumption on Instagram alone is up 25%. Brands are being forced to shift to e-commerce now and selling everything digitally and online. So with that massive shift and this fundamental shift in the way that people actually purchase products, I know myself, personally, and maybe you all resonate. I've been purchasing, you have to, almost everything online now, and basically my whole life is dictated by when I receive packages or food, because I have a very protective family here that doesn't want me to go out and be in contact with other people because it could jeopardize their health. So because of that massive shift, and because this is happening for the entire world, right now, social media, I think, is more topical and more relevant and more important for those that are influencers and for brands to really utilize and leverage than it's ever been. So with that, of course, there's going to be a massive shift in opportunity for content creators and for influencers, and for those that are interested in getting into this space. Marketing is shifting alongside the way that people consume content and purchase products. If, for example, someone's not physically going to a retail location anymore, and that overhead is ridiculous to maintain and manage a retail location, that brand is most likely going to shift to digital, shift to selling online, which means that now their marketing allocation and budget that they maybe were putting towards a billboard outside of the retail location, or they were putting towards a radio ad or spot, or they were putting towards anything out of home advertising wise, now is being reallocated towards social media. For many, that is an experimental marketing budget. It's something that they've never done before. It's something that they don't know how to do per se. So they're looking for, yes, social media experts, ad agencies that can help with digital, but also looking towards influencer marketing and finding ways to organically engage and have the community create content that can then drive more traffic, more followers, more conversion, and it's a bigger return on investment. And I think what brands are finding is that return on investment component is actually more lucrative and more quantifiable in the social space than it was in the out-of-home space, in the billboard space, or any kind of traditional advertising, because it's just more easily trackable. It's easier to basically find an organic way to create and basically share content. And that's something that can be really hard to do when you don't have exact metrics from a billboard, for example. So all of that to say, means that right now is the time. If you're thinking about getting into social media partnerships and collaborations with brands, this is an incredible panel of probably collective 150 plus brand collaborations with some of the biggest companies in the world. We're living proof. You don't have to have 1 million followers to do it. Myself, I have 30 something thousand. It's, I'm considered a micro influencer, but still have done 36 plus partnerships with large businesses. And I just, that's just proof for those that are maybe hesitant or thinking you need to be famous to do this. You definitely don't. There's opportunities out there where if you have an audience base that you can influence their purchasing decision, which is really what an influencer is. I know that term can have a bad rep, but the idea is you're influencing the purchasing decisions of a potential consumer base for a brand or demographic that a marketing company or business would be interested in targeting and potentially acquiring as a lead or a customer. So in order to help that brand, you can actually use the tools at your disposal, your creativity, all of the work you've done as a SAG-AFTRA performer, as an artist, and basically pivot that into the social space and start to create content for these companies. Now, of course, if you are doing a video piece of content for a brand, and your union, absolutely, if you saw my class or Ben's class, push for it to be SAG-AFTRA. It needs to be and should be SAG-AFTRA. It is a commercial still if you're in the social space. But, for most, it's going to be print or short or still imagery that you're going to be starting your brand journey with. So that's not covered by the union, and basically is a great way to get into it because there's a lot that you can do in post-production to edit content to begin posting brand collaborations. When you first start, you might have to build a resume. which means that you may have to do some things for trade. If any of you have seen my level 2 class, the Beyond the Basics with SAG-AFTRA, it's here on YouTube if you haven't seen it, as well as Ben's level 1 class. If you're just getting into it, yes, you may have to accept some brand trades or collaborations that are purely trade, just so that you can kind of get your feet wet and learn what it is like to procure work, to actually go out and find opportunities to negotiate and have a relationship with a PR firm or a social media company that manages that brand. What is that communication like? How does the negotiation process work? Do you want to get your agency involved? When is the right time to upsell to stories, to reel videos, to IGTV videos, to dedicated videos that you're doing for the brand on YouTube? There's a lot of opportunity here, and you can start to expand and build. And then once you're ready and you feel comfortable, it's not about following. It's somewhat. I mean, it's going to dictate the price in which you can command in these collaborations to an extent, but it's actually I believe it's more about your authentic relationship with that brand, your genuine interest to give value back to the community and to that company, and your content creation capabilities, which is something I believe all of us have. I mean, the reason you're on this today is because you have a genuine interest in potentially making this an opportunity for yourself. So anyway, my 2 cents on that. I know it's a bit long-winded, but just start with trade, build your resume, build your relationships, and now's a great time to do it.
Shivani, you've done some amazing collaborations, both with brands, with celebrities. How do you think about collaborating with other people?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Ryan that it's, first of all, just not about the followers, but I do think how he was saying it's about the authentic relationship to the brand. I also really believe this to my core, that it's the authentic relationship also that you have to your follower, and to, like, I literally consider anybody that follows me my friend, because they have that trust that I'm following you for some reason, whether they might be following you because they like your content, or they like your personality, or they like, the pictures or videos that you post, whatever reason that they might like you, they have a little bit of trust there. So I feel like choosing the right brand and not just taking anything that's coming your way, or you'll just do anything. I think it shows and it reads if you are going in with that mindset, and you have to be able to relay that to, like I'm saying, your friends, right? Because you almost have to consider them as they are your friends, because they're there along your journey, just as your friends might be. And I think working with and collaborating with brands during COVID specifically has been really, really tough, but also really exciting, because I think they're really allowing creators to have more creative direction, because they're kind of bringing projects to us and saying, hey, here's an idea that we have. Do you have anything more concrete that we can lead with? Whether it's innovating a new dance style or new dance video, how can we make something a little bit different and unique? So I think brands are looking for things that are unique to you. How can you set this product apart? How can you sell it a little bit differently than the person next to you? Because everybody here is uniquely yourself, right? So I think being able to take something and creatively then decide, okay, how is this going to be authentic to myself? And I really believe that if it's not a brand that you resonate with already, then I don't think it reads if you are working with them and you're not already resonating with them authentically. That makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, Zamina, you have crafted a really wonderful and unique presence. And I know that you're also very much an advocate for health and wellness in this space. And I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about either how you have gotten into social media as a senior performer. We have a lot of older members who say, oh, social media, there's no way, there's no space for me. And how do you navigate that? And what are your recommendations on maintaining a healthy mindset?
Me, it was really something I was far away about what was social media some years ago. And I started just to post, not by my work as actress or this kind of thing, or model. I was not posting that. I was posting what I was cooking. I live on a beach, so things on the beach, stones, beautiful light, things. And in fact, it started like that because I started to do this self-portrait. But it was not, no fashion, nothing, natural, no makeup, authentic, really me. And people starting to interact with the real me in a way, not the model, not the one we see on the magazines or, and it started like that, like 6 years ago. And this was really, I really enjoyed that because it was a platform I could be myself. And it's what in a way, I promoted to people to be themselves. And I was never imagined that the fact to be authentic will lead me today where I am on this social media network that I was not at all, in a way, really interested in. But now I see that there is, beyond the fact of being model and actress and all that, what is more important in the era we are, it is to communicate with people authenticity, to communicate with people true things, because it's difficult to know where is the truth. To communicate things about simple things of daily life for people to be able to adapt that and to be able to be at peace. Now we are at home, and to discover new ways by using what they have to create with what they have, simply. And this is now, it makes sense that, because it's my way of living, so it makes sense that for me, it was not to promote myself as model, but, and also, Ryan, we had discussion about that some years ago, because I still don't, I can say I don't collaborate with brands because I have another issue. As I make my own things, I use my own product for skin and hair and that, it's very difficult for me to promote product that I don't use. This is about authenticity for me too. So
Yeah.
I received some products are great, but now there is another issue. It's about being paid for. And I'm really bad in that thing, to make my promotion, to make that. Ryan helped me at the beginning, and I'm really bad for that. So for many years, I don't have a modeling agency worldwide. And I just signed right now with a modeling agency worldwide, a big agency. And they have the social department, social media department, and they're going to take charge of that. And for me, it's a release, because like that, I can have the eventuality of incomes from brands that they're going to work for me. My agency going to work for me on that. And this make me free to do what I like to do in these exchanges with people all around the world, because it's what I like to do.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting, because the beginning of my approach were very artistic and very individual and authentic about things true. And now, many years after, like 5 years after, it's what I am speaking about with a bigger audience. And like said Shivani, these people, they are friends. And when I do my video, I have these messages or these comments. I have the feeling you are with me, I'm with you, you are my friend. Yes, we are, because we give from our heart. We give something beautiful to the world by just the technology we have. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah. I love
my way to live this,
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that it's been a many year journey. I think often people think about social media as like, oh, what can I get, in the next month, in the next whatever. And
then I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I never thought doing my Instagram mostly. I never thought how I going to calculate, how I going to do it to make it work. Never. I had no plan to get followers, nothing. It came, I think, because I'm authentic to myself first. And this is the most important thing, because we are all different and we all have something specific to bring at our own way. And it's what is requested now. Yeah. And it's for that we are at home with ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a great time.
As it relates to content, Chris, I've been just a fan of your content for a long time. I'm curious, what recommendations do you have for people who are thinking about either, hey, I want to be creating more content for social media, or otherwise, where's maybe a place to get started? And what have you learned from your journey that has spanned not just social media, but also, you know, film and these other pieces of the entertainment industry?
The company you keep is really important, I'd say. You're the average of the 5 people that you're around the most. So, you know, keeping a good network of people around you is always an important thing. I'm very grateful, and I'm very lucky to have, you know, genius friends around me. You know, even you guys all here, I know all of, you know, Shivani, Ben, Ryan, I know all of you from before, and I know all the great work that y'all do. It's important to be able to have that type of motivation, because it can be easy, especially in this day and age right now. And I preface this by saying that, you know, I think everybody should be doing their own work at their own pace, because, you know, other people can, you know, point at you and be like, why aren't you doing this? Like, you have all the time in the world. But at the same time, we don't know other people's lives now, what's going on when it's mentally, spiritually, all those things, because everyone's going through it very differently. But that being said, there is no better time than to, you know, just kind of take stock with the people that are around you, and what can you create. I mean, even the sketches that I did prior, I was living with a roommate back in the day, and we would make sketches all the time, just because he was a, you know, a brilliant comedian, and, you know, I was able to write, I was able to produce and shoot and direct. So it's like utilizing the tools that you have, and then utilizing the other tools that other people have, and seeing how you can come together and create something. And not everything is going to work. Like, you have to be okay with that. I think something that I had to learn, and I'm still learning, is to not be so precious about things. To not feel like, oh, it has to be perfect, it has to be this way. And I think a lot of people just stop because of that. People just feel like, oh man, if I put this out into the world and people are going to judge it, they're going to be like, oh no, I don't want people to see this type of work. This isn't really indicative of the perfect version of me. But, you know, spoiler alert, you're probably not going to get that, you know, in 90% of your work. It's just, I think the idea is, you know, I've taken it from like the Duplass brothers. They were really big on just put content out there, just keep doing it, you know, because sooner or later something is going to hit. And it, with myself, like even the sketches that I used to do, the goal was to create relationships, to maintain relationships, to potentially get work out of it. And funny enough, I'm working on a production in a few weeks that was based off of, they were able to see the work that I did on Instagram, that was able for them to measure the type of work that I already do. So it's like there is a result from it. And like you said, Ben, it's like, I did those sketches not knowing when it was going to turn fruit. I didn't know when it was going to actually become, you know, like something that had results with it. But I think if you trust the process, if you feel like you can just keep doing it, just even this feature that I just completed, you know, I know this business is very tough. It's like, it's really hard on people. And, you know, I was just in that mindset of, I didn't want to wait. And I didn't want my first film, it didn't have to be perfect. Like, but I'm incredibly proud of it. I'm incredibly proud of the people that I was able to bring on with it. And it's an incredibly diverse cast. And so it's something for me that's really important. So I think that's one of those things where if you have an idea, and if your only fear is what other people are going to think of you, we're talking about social media at the end of the day. This is the place where no matter what, people are going to have thoughts and opinions of you. I think it's easier said than done to say, hey, don't worry about what other people think. That is something that we all just kind of have a natural way of feeling at times. But beyond that, you know, just take a leap of faith and see where it takes you. Because if you have good people around you, they are your safety net. They're the people that keep you up. They're the people that keep you going. And I'm grateful for that, to be able to not only be someone who receives that, but can also reciprocate that as well. And I think it's a community thing. Like Yasmina said, it's all about positivity and trying to be kind to one another during these times, because we're all going through it. So
yeah, that's beautiful. Ayana, what's been inspiring you on social media, whether it's content people are creating, ways people are utilizing technology? What gets you excited about this?
Oh my gosh, the list is long because there's so many changes and there's so many things that are happening. I can say that I love how content creators are pivoting to being more authentic. That's sort of topical what we're talking about. So you see people like Oprah cooking from her kitchen, letting you into like her lifestyle. And so I always recommend that to content creators that sort of have produced content. It's a pivot mode where you go into saying this is sort of the day in the life or behind the scenes, or like when I call her Mother Oprah did, she's cooking in her kitchen. Let people into your homes. Create content that's sort of sustainable. Like it's sustainable to create content about a day in a life, about you cooking, or if you have a hobby, or if you're bike riding, or you're hiking, that's sort of sustainable. What I do love about technology is, the power of hashtags to join a conversation. A lot of people are saying, well, how do I get more followers? This sort of thing. It's literally joining a conversation, and each platform is very specific to that. So for instance, Twitter, I personally feel like celebrities or people with larger followings or athletes, like they really pay attention to Twitter above all platforms. So I feel like, if you're looking to reach out or to create content, Twitter's the place to be, to tweet at people that you want to start, potentially collaborating with. The other thing that I like about it is, brands are watching. So, what Ryan was saying earlier about, being authentic. This is the time to be authentic with your content, because they are looking for places to place their product, or to get you to talk about it. And for those of you who have, what we call like a nano following, I've seen people get brand deals with less than 1,000 followers. And really, it goes back to your engagement rate. So say, for instance, if you have a really high engagement rate, but your following levels is low, that doesn't mean that you opt out of saying, well, it's not the time. It's never going to be the right time. So, I always tell my clients, if you want to do this on your own, and my students as well, start DMing brands. You'll be surprised. These DMs are monitored on social, and you'll get a response. And it's simply saying, I love your product, or whatever it is. And I was, wondering if you have, if you're doing collaborations or brand deals. And instantly, I tried it out for a smaller client, just to sort of walk her through the process. And she got responses from some of larger brands, or they have a platform that they'll direct you to. They'll say, please log in. They'll ask you to connect your social, so that they make sure that your following and your engagement rate, they can pull all this content, to send the analytics, the data about your accounts. And if they're interested, they'll let you know. So someone had, less than 1,000 followers, but their engagement rate was right at about 12 to 13%, which is really high. And it's really good for such a small following. They were able to get a trade, which is what we've been talking about as well. So it's not a paid opportunity, but it is an opportunity to do a trade. So you can get a code, and you sort of start from there. Sometimes they'll say, we'll give you a specific code, and it's really like an affiliate code, where you're telling your followers, please, use my code when you're purchasing this. And then if you are able to get some sales or to generate revenue, then that's sort of a larger conversation. So yes, those opportunities are still there. Brands are looking at your social. So please stay active. I'm pretty sure you've covered this in prior sessions, but the algorithm is demanding, and you have to post frequently. And even if, say, for instance, you're talking about Instagram, if you don't feel like you have content that's necessarily for your feed, go live, or produce content in stories. There are a lot of apps that are out there that can help you create stories stylized. Or if you just want to be authentic and turn it on and use some of the filters. I always feel like using what these platforms give you, stickers and filters and boomerangs and things like that, it definitely favors, when you post that type of content. So make sure you're staying active on each of the platforms, and then try something new. So, people in the beginning, it was like, oh, TikTok, that's for teenagers, that's for kids. And then you start seeing a lot of these celebrities migrate over to TikTok. And so now it's a thing. It's so much of a thing that now we have reels, on Instagram. So be sure to make sure that you're participating, because early adapters, they really show favor in the algorithm if you're starting to use these tools early on. So for instance, I bet you right now, if you went on and posted something on Reels, you probably get more views there than you would on the feed. And it's simply because the algorithm, that's what's working right now. And so if you're an early adapter, I say this all the time, please, when something rolls out, try it and stay consistent.
I love that. Yeah, Ryan, I know you've talked a lot about that. Are there any elements of the platform that you recommend people go try out, and or other ways to increase engagement on these platforms?
Yeah, I very much agree with what Ayana just said regarding, jumping on Reels. IGTV isn't so new anymore, but still an opportunity for long form video content, graphically designing your highlights or creating, different categories and making sure that that looks clear and concise and aesthetically pleasing, creating a story a day so that you have active content that's going up, or more if you can. But of course, I always recommend a story a day will at least keep people interested and active, and it's not oversaturating the same way that posting 3 times a day could be, for example. And then of course, using your feed. You have up to 60 seconds of video on your feed post. You have still images. You have, you can put short form video content up there as well, even shorter than 60 seconds. Reels is, as mentioned, a take on TikTok, especially because TikTok's having a really tough last 60 days. So a really great opportunity to jump on the algorithm within Instagram, as mentioned, and ride that wave as it's happening. We saw it happen with IGTV when that first got released. We immediately went to our clients. We managed, over 400 accounts. So we immediately went to everyone and was like, create IGTV videos, get your long form video out there. We're going to create it for you, whatever it was. And a lot of our clients saw huge upticks at that time because IGTV was something Instagram was really pushing. Now, I'm not going to get into the weeds there, but they were using some tactics to basically bolster the numbers that you recognize on IGTV because of the length of time that people were viewing the actual video was different than YouTube, for example, so that you're from what you're seeing data wise, it looks like a lot of it reach or a large reach and a huge amount of impressions. But at the end of the day, they still were prioritizing content there. So same thing goes for Reels now. As far as increasing your engagement, I would highly recommend go back and watch Ben's intro class. If this all feels a little fast for you as far as doing partnerships, getting to a level of influence, that class will help you get going. And then if you'd like to, I'd be honored if you would watch my class, which is a follow-up. We talk a lot about increasing engagement, but it continues to come down to quality content posted consistently within your brand and defining that brand on social media. What does that actually mean? What are you posting about? And at the end of the day, quality content is going to separate the wheat from the chaff is the idea. And it is the difference between the pages that you see and you feel like you're drawn in and want to engage and continue to be a fan, and the pages that, feel more like content consumers rather than content creators. And that's one thing I love about, I had the pleasure of working with actually Chris, Shivani, and Yasmina on their social media presences at one time in the last years. And it's so amazing to see how all 3 of them have really taken that to heart. And now look, they have a collective, 500,000 followers on Instagram. It makes a huge difference. And you've heard it from all of us. Every single person on this panel has said, just get started. Just put the effort in, start small, don't expect too much. If you have a following currently, obviously know your value. That's something I preach often, but know your value. Don't accept a bag of chips for a post. But as Ayana said and others have said, setting yourself up with those initial brand collaborations, setting yourself up with influencers or other celebrities or people that that have a following and doing collaborations together, content together, and then really taking that quality very seriously has been what we've seen to be the distinguishing factor between pages that really do grow and those that don't. And of course, the authenticity component. So that's a given. But be yourself and do what you love, and people will resonate with that.
Yeah. Shivani, I've been repeatedly impressed at your ability to create content for different types of platforms. And you've, been able to leverage Instagram and YouTube and Triller and all these other pieces. How do you recommend people think about looking at new platforms?
I definitely think there's a learning curve for each platform, just from the UI of it. It's just every platform is, the uploading is a little bit different, or the editing is a little bit different. But honestly, the shortcut that we've had for quite some time and what we do is we'll create a piece of content, but then the way that we'll edit it will be different. So for example, for TikTok, it'll be vertical, but we'll shoot that same video horizontally. But then when we edit it, we just edit it for TikTok. So we're not creating different content for each platform. We're simply just editing it so that it's more aesthetically pleasing, like Brian was saying, for each one. Because obviously for TikTok, you don't really want to post something that's horizontal, you want to post something that's vertical. So we will shoot the same video and just have it horizontal, vertical. That way it's just done, the choreography's done, the dance is done, and then you can post it everywhere. And we've just noticed that that's been the most efficient way for us to perform, is to have, not just in the way that we used to think of it before, was that, oh, we have something for YouTube, now we have to create original content for Triller, original content for Instagram, and for TikTok. It was just getting way too overwhelming. And then we realized that we don't have the same followers across the board. So it's not a bad thing to use the same content and simply just edit it differently for each platform.
Yeah, I love that. As we look at starting to wind this down, I'm curious, I'll go around and ask each of you some words of wisdom that you have for people, either in terms of approaching social media in general. You all touched a lot about authenticity and changing how you're approaching social media in a global pandemic and with the social movements and all of that. So I'm going to start with Chris. What words of wisdom do you have for people in the midst of all of that?
I mean, just to add on top of what everybody else has said, which is, a lot of great things have been said today already. So I'm trying to think what I could add, but I think this year has really taught us that we truly desire connection, in whatever form that might kind of be. And I think, again, having those relationships with your followers, with your audience, with even just friends as well, it's like, it's so important to continue to maintain those relationships and those connections. Even, for the film that I'm doing right now, it's, we had to move everything remotely, even though we're in post-production. So fortunately, we can kind of do a lot of that remotely. But to then even have outreach, to find different ways to partner with different companies, to find ways to maintain those relationships. Like, social media is great for something like that. So I do think that, to have a direct contact, to be able to reach out to a certain company that might resonate with your content, with the work that you're doing, whether that's you just dropping them a line, or whether that's finding a way to connect with them through another friend or through another affiliate. I think those are just great tools to be able to use. And in the end, I would just say the tough part is right now with social media and with just, mainstream media as well, is there's just big divisiveness in terms of how people are ingesting news and how people are taking that in. If you are somebody of influence, if you do have that type of, that power to be able to help other people in a positive way, do it. Like, that is your platform. That is what we are given. That is the responsibility of ourselves. So it's like, it doesn't even matter if you have 2,000 followers or 200 followers. If you're getting a very strong level of engagement within that, that means that people are listening to you. That means that people care about what you think. So, do your due diligence as well as just to be an active participant in the world. Like, that's what we are. We are all actively participating to make this a better place, at least in my hopeful opinion. So, with that, just take it what you can, take your time, breathe, have fun, and post.
Cheers to that. Yasmina, in your years of wisdom, what advice would you leave the people watching?
It's we said a lot of things about that, but I think what is important is to share what make us vibrating, what make us happy, what is true to us, and to invite people not to copy, not to reproduce, but to investigate themselves, to be curious. I think this is very important. People has to understand, with all the accumulation of news from one side to another, they have to be with themselves and to do their research. They have to be curious, really go online and search by themselves. And they're going to discover new things, other things that sometimes maybe are far from the subject they were looking for, but these things they're going to discover are for themselves. And this is a magic phenomenon, in fact. The world outside is bringing us, make us, our attention to go on that or that or that. It's not just to take it and swallow that. It's just because if we are attracted by that, there is something there to dig more, to be curious and to investigate and to learn things from that. And after, to make this, to relate, and after eventually to give back. So it's for that, when I post things from there or that information, it's not because it's what I believe, it's that. It's just, what do you think about that? I did a lot of kind of tests in the story like that. What do you think about that issue? What do you think? It's quite interesting how people answer and the message I receive, because this obliges people to really think, not just to, oh, there is that, get this information. It's too much, you know, but really to dig and think by themselves. And I think it's also for that we are in this situation.
I love that.
Because from chaos always emerge a kind of new creation. And it's really what is going on. I see that it's difficult to put words on that because it's discussion of hours that I often have on my video, long discussion about these things. But it's just take it easy, enjoy, do your research, share what makes you vibrate, because what makes you vibrate gonna resonate in others, and they're gonna advertently tune on that and elevate their consciousness as well. It's an amazing tool for to elevate the consciousness that we have now. It's
beautiful. Yeah, thank you. Shivani, as someone who very much embodies all of that, what's your advice for those watching?
Oh my gosh, first of all, I love what you just said. Oh my gosh, my heart is like so full just hearing that. I absolutely agree with everything she said. I think, I don't know, it's just so worded so beautifully that my mind is just like triggered, and I'm like, oh yeah, what is vibrating to me right now? I don't know, I gotta post about it. But yes, I really resonate with that. And I think it's all about I think when social media first started, when Instagram first started with, and you realized, oh, you can collaborate with brands, I think there was this notion of that Instagram or social media has to be like the best 5% of you. And it can only be that. And it has to be very produced, and it has to be very filtered and very, just the best version of you. But I think what I love now and what's happening with social media now is the rawness. I feel people are even more attracted to now. And I'm just basing it off of how I feel, because I would say 10 people that I follow that I feel like I'm a super fan of. I follow about 900 people, but there's 10, 15 people that I follow like religiously every day. I'll never miss a post. I see all their stories. And when they're so raw with their emotions, I connect with them the best. And I have this like just trust with them. And I don't see it any different than interacting in person. So you want to have that care and that just that sort of yearn to listen and learn, and responding to DMs. I don't think that's something we touched on in this conversation, but I do think, you know, going through your DMs, responding if somebody resonated with a post that you had or they sent you a sweet comment, I think it changes everything when you can create a dialogue individually with somebody. I know it's something that I hold on to when somebody I follow responds to me, and just starting a conversation as you would in person. I don't think it's that different, but I totally agree with everything she said. And yeah, I think be yourself and don't be afraid of being yourself, and don't be afraid of posting about it in a sometimes non-filtered way.
Yeah. And what a gift that performers and SAG-AFTRA members have training and experience of doing just that. You know, that's what we work on in class and in our art. I love that. Ryan, what advice would you leave everybody with?
Yes. I think a lot of beautiful things have been said. Just to add to it, nothing happens overnight. You know, I'm going to quote Calvin Coolidge here, but persistence and determination are omnipotent. You know, that is really, for me, what it comes down to. Just to give you a story to finish up here. I, initially got into the entertainment industry as a performer, and as many performers watching this, submitted myself for everything under the sun. I self-taped myself for projects that I wasn't called in for. Later got into casting and realized that that's not always the best way to go about doing something, but I submitted myself through breakdowns. I sent myself in via email from finding the breakdowns from my friends. I, submitted on all of the casting sites, did not get a singular great opportunity. For years I did this, and you may be feeling the same way. It wasn't until I did that, probably I would say 500 to 1,000 times, that I learned some of the things that were starting to get responses and work. And what ended up happening is I didn't know what was going to come next in my career, but then social media kind of took off and started. And all of those things that I had learned for years of hitting my head on the wall and just not having any success or opportunities, I applied that to my submission process for different partnerships in the social media space. And I sent 50 emails. So instead of 1,000, like in acting and commercials, I sent 50 emails and I got 35 yeses right off the bat. Now, many people would see that and think, oh yeah, overnight success there, 35, yeses after one attempt. But the story I'm telling you now is that no, that was years of submitting myself and getting no countless times, embarrassing amount of times. And then eventually, because failure is not really failure, just as a learning opportunity, eventually I was able to apply that knowledge that I built from those learning opportunities and actually find opportunities in the space. So don't be afraid of failure. And of course, yeah, like I said, nothing happens overnight. This is a new world. It's the Wild West. We joke about it often because it's changing so rapidly, so aggressively. But if you lead with passion and you create content that you're passionate about, and you reach out to brands that you're passionate about, and you find ways to come up with creative ideas, as Shivani said, for different products that you're interested in, and you pitch those ideas with passion and with determination and with consistent professionalism, it's almost impossible for people to say no. And yes, eventually you will get a yes. You will definitely get a yes eventually. Just keep going, keep trying. If this is something you want to do, we're all living proof that it's possible at every level. So that's what I'll leave with.
Beautiful. Ayana, your final thoughts. Take us home.
Yes, I want everyone to really just think about your social media channels as your channel. Like, you are in charge of programming it. So as being performers, as being creators, you literally can program your channel, your social media platforms all day long. So don't forget that. Like, this is your own network. You have the power. Oftentimes, one of my clients, he's a well-known celebrity, but he also often gives these motivational talks, and he talks about writing your visions down. So when you're having trouble trying to figure out, well, what do I post? Do I post a picture? Do I do a video? Do I talk about what I'm wearing or my shoes? It's really about having the intention of what you want to post. So you can start with the vision board, or you can just write them down. He says write down 300 things on your that you have for a vision, and then look at those every day and start to manifest these things. So I just want to leave people with, you know, you are in charge of your channel. You have the power to program it the way that you want it programmed. You get to pick the content, you get to edit, you get to collaborate, you get to bring people on. If you can't do that in person or physical, it's great just to create side by side, to have someone record something, you record something and then edit it together. Like there's really a way to connect and make these things come true. So, you know, find the platform that you're most comfortable on. It may not be TikTok, it may not be Twitter, but it may be YouTube or Instagram or some other platform, but find what's comfortable for you and start to create. You have the power. This is your channel, your life.
I love that. Thank you so much to each of you for sharing your incredible wisdom, experience, and advice. I am personally overwhelmed with gratitude for each of you, and my own vision for the world is one where each and every one of you watching can share your art and creativity with the world, whether that's through acting, dance, your voice, your professionalism as a broadcaster, whatever gifts you have, may they be shared with the world. And on behalf of the team here at SAG-AFTRA, I would like to thank all of you for watching, for taking the time to be with us, our guests for making the time to be here and sharing all of this incredible insight. A very special thanks to all of you who've been tuning in each week for our President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement live streams. And if you haven't already, while you're here, smash that subscribe button on SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel to get updates on the great content being presented each week, including the past 2 social media live streams that many of you have asked about. So with that, thank you all so much for tuning in. Stay safe and healthy.